The rich venison ragu recipe is a really interesting one because it uses either the haunch of the venison or a cut that you might not often use quite as much, or you can make it using offcuts so you don't get any waste. So all the bits that are, you can either do it in a whole piece, in a haunch, or you can chop it up, braise it down, shred it up and just stir it through your pappardelle pasta for a really nice rich dish. I specifically chose New Zealand venison for this recipe because it's not so overpowering that it totally overpowers the dish. It's quite subtle in flavour when it's braised, but also it's, the jus are all intensified as it cooks down, so the longer you cook it, the more intense your flavours will be, and so therefore you get a lovely sauce to stir through your pasta. And I also used the Denver cut, which is a really interesting cut of venison, which braises down really well, so you can quick cook it or you can cook it for a long time, so very versatile. In a nice big pan, pop that on the stove and then add some oil to the pan. So when your pan's nice and hot, drop in your meat. So once your first batch is all sealed off, just pop it into a colander or onto a tray with some absorbent paper. At this stage, add your red wine. And while it's bubbling, really get your spatula in there and scrape all the bits off the bottom of your pan, because as I say, that's where you're going to get that really lovely, intense, rich flavour from. Now add in your beef stock or your game stock, and you need to make sure it's just covered. So we're going to cook this on a very, very low heat, so it's not going to be rapidly boiling or anything. And to that we're now going to add a few different flavourings. I've got some bay leaves, can just be popped in there. Got some garlic. Just kind of roughly chop it because this is going to be cooked for such a long time that it's all going to break down. And then here I've got some juniper berries, and you need to crush them to release their flavour. So pop those in there as well. And they'll release all their flavour into the stew. So at this stage, turn your heat right down, and you can even just pop it into the oven with a lid on or some tin foil on top. And as I say, cook that for sort of 2 to 3 hours, checking every hour or so to make sure there's enough liquid in your pan. So once your meat has been cooking for 2 to 3 hours, take it out of the oven or off the stove and just leave it to cool until you can touch it, until it's handleable. At that stage you need to start flaking the meat because it will still be in chunks, but it will break away very, very easily. So just finely chop some garlic. It's really important to get as much flavour in as you can into the stew at this stage. So as I say, the basis of most things to do with cooking, it's carrot, celery, onion, leek. They go into our pan. So coat them all well in the oil. Add a pinch of salt. Add the garlic. Now it's important that these cook with no colour, so you want them to gently sweat. So you want them to be lovely and soft and translucent. And you just need to let that tick over for sort of 10 to 12 minutes. So I've got some lovely rosemary. So rosemary is quite a woody herb, so you do need to chop it quite finely. Okay, the other herb I'm going to use is some sage. Just shred it finely. And that can all just be dropped into your sofrito. Okay, so now that our vegetables have softened down, gone slightly translucent and have started their cooking process, we need to add the shredded meat. So what I've done is I've drained the meat from the stock, I've then shredded the meat up and I've reserved the cooking liquor. So that just goes into there like that. And this still needs quite a lot more cooking time, another half an hour or so. But to that, we need to make it a bit more saucy, a bit more wet. So add a tiny bit of flour and some tomato puree. Stir it all together well. This again will just richen it, give it a nice consistency. And to that we add our cooking juices. You can see how lovely and rich that is. And then leave that on a low heat to cook for another 30 minutes or so. So we need to cook our pasta, rapidly boiling water in a nice big pan. Plenty of salt, and then Put in your pasta. This is pappardelle, so get it all in there like that. We need to cook this for about 4 minutes, and we only want to cook it to al dente because we're then going to add the pasta to our hot sauce. So once your pasta's cooked, take it over to your sink and drain it. And let all those flavours be absorbed into your pappardelle. We're ready to plate up. Let's take a lovely amount of your pasta. We'll just finish that off with a few bits of shaved parmesan, like so. That is rich venison ragu with pappardelle.